Life isn't linear, it's organic, and we all have the chance to enrich our lives and those around us. But you must look within and get to know yourself better to realise your true potential. I'm Dave Burke, and throughout my conversations on Finding Your Element, we speak to people doing just that. So, do something that makes you feel alive. This podcast is sponsored by Maplewood Residential and produced at Sandyford Business District at Hub 17. Along with me today is, I'm delighted to say, Neale Richmond, Fine Gael politician, also a fellow dad in our kids' school. It's thanks to the school, though, Neale, that we're sitting here. And I was just saying how lucky we are with the dads up in the school there. But I think we nearly like the school more than our kids at this stage. It's bizarre. But I got to say, I had such crack canvassing for you. I genuinely didn't know what to expect at all, and it's also that fear factor of like who's going to be behind the door when you greet them. But it was eye-opening as well, Neale, in terms of the graft that you put in there. If I'm honest with you, don't tell anyone I said that. And no, it's really, really impressive, I must say, genuinely. And if we take the politics aside, if I was to ask you about your childhood, not too young, but I think your parents passed away quite young, did they?
Yeah, no, I wasn't a child when my parents passed away, but it was younger than most. So my dad was only 59, and then my mum passed away within 4 years of that. So I was 22.
Right.
So yeah, no, pretty young. Not too so young that it was tragic, and I'm very cognizant of that when you hear stories or you know friends who lost their parents when they were 9, 10, or maybe never even got to meet their mum or their dad. And I had for 22 years two absolutely wonderful parents. Couldn't have wanted for anything. Really caring. When I say wanted for anything, like it wasn't like they were spending money or anything on us, but they were always present, and their presence was the main thing. So I'm aware, I lost them relatively young. I was the first of my friends in my kind of social group to lose one parent, and then a couple of years later you lose the second parent. So yeah, there's times you get pretty frustrated about that. My mum met 2 of her grandkids, but a Gansey load more have come.
But did it affect you in any way in your 20s? Your 20s are quite pivotal.
Yeah, not as... There were certainly definite moments where I kind of, like say when we're going to friends' weddings and their dad was getting up to make a speech, or their dad came on the stag, and I was like, I was just so jealous.
Yeah.
Wish my dad was here for that. And I ran in 2 Seanad elections. Now the elections are just coming to the end. It's not like the election that you got a glimpse of. It's driving around the country, making 300 house calls in the space of a couple of weeks. Right. Sitting in a kitchen, asking for a vote, eye to eye, off other elected politicians. Yeah. My dad was a sales rep. So he was on the road for his entire life. There was no Google Maps. There was no mobile phones when my dad was working, car phones. But he knew every lane and every village he could get in, be it a building site or a farm. He was in building products, and he knew them all. Yeah. And he had a great team. He knew someone everywhere. And I was like, imagine I had my dad on the Shanna campaign driving me around. One, we would have saved so much time because he wouldn't have been looking up maps. He would have been telling you the quick way. Yeah. He would have had that ease. He would have been a great politician if he wanted to do it. I know we're parking the politics, but he was that natural salesman involved in everything. Yeah.
Well, look, politics is going to trickle through this regardless, right? But, as a father figure, was he a hero? Was he someone that you obviously you would love to have been around for an awful lot longer, like any kind of son or daughter would? Was he into politics himself, though, in any way? Or how did you get the bug? Like, where did you... was it just inherent in you?
So we weren't a party political family. My parents weren't members of Fine Gael. They weren't out canvassing or any other party, but they always voted. And I remember as literally the same age as my own son going up to the polling station with them as they voted. And it was very much instilled that you vote. But they were really involved in the community. Dad was president of the rugby club when I was 13. He was on the vestry in the church parish thing that we were involved in. My mum was really involved in the bridge club. One thing that my mum never missed a match.
Right.
I'm the youngest of 4, so my siblings were a good bit older. To be quite honest, they're much better at sport than I was. My brother was a good rugby player.
Yeah.
My sister's very good hockey players. And I have an abiding memory of as 8 or 9-year-old standing beside a hockey pitch, watching one of my sisters win yet another cup with Wesley.
You played hockey as well, didn't you?
Yeah, but I was rubbish. Literally, they stuck me in goals because I was the big lad and I might get in the way of the ball without ever doing anything.
Hence the front row position in rugby.
Yeah, and my dad was a prop as well.
Okay.
And I love that my dad was a prop, I was a prop, and my brother's a scrum half. So I think I won the genes battle, or maybe lost it. But they always went to the matches. They always encouraged. They always sacrificed to make sure that we could, back in the 80s, 90s, like our kids have any number of choice when it comes to sport, any number of choice of activities. Back then, you didn't really start much before you were 12. In terms of,
that's right.
Maybe a bit of soccer, maybe GA, but it was.
You look at it now; they're like plucked from like 6, 7. If you have any talent, it's like right.
Drama club, gymnastics. Like you could spend your whole life as a parent now driving your kids around to activities. It's great. I love every chance I get to, either with my son or my daughter, to go to one of their activities. I really never thought I'd get such a kick out of my daughter's
Are you coaching?
drama class. Yeah, the mighty under 8s.
Lovely.
Coached my son, which I didn't know if I'd always coached. Like when I left school, I would have coached as a kind of a job. Didn't know if I wanted to coach my own son, but it's like anything. I showed up the first session of mini rugby and they go, "Thanks very much for volunteering." I said, "I never volunteered." But of course, if I'm able to do it and I don't do it, I get frustrated. Where's the evenness in that? You're relying on someone else. So I do feel guilty. He plays GA as well, and I'm not a mentor. I'm not involved. But they've loads, and they all have played, and they know what they're doing.
And as Neale, is that taken because your parents did the same for you?
Yeah. No, my really strong memories of going up to mini rugby on a Sunday morning with my dad. As I said, on a pitch side with my mum. Hockey pitches are the coldest places in the world. And this is when they were grit hockey pitches, so not like the AstroTurf now. Just going round to sports and events, going to their school shows or open days, wherever it was actually, I would have spent a lot more time with my mother than my father.
Okay.
Because he was out working.
Yeah.
He was out providing for a family of 4. My mum took a long time out of the workplace because that's what you did in the 80s. That's what the mum did. That was what society expected.
Was she a charity worker?
That's what she ended up.
Okay.
So she was initially in the bank, and this was the era before I was born that the minute she got married, she got sacked because the marriage bar existed in the early 70s Ireland.
Yeah.
And then when she had my brother, she got sacked again, and then took time away. And one of the big things, like, you look at yourself and you go, "Oh, I got to go to school, I got to go to college, I got to do X, Y, or Z." My mum at a certain age did a back to work course with what was then FOSS.
Yes.
And that was a huge leap for her. And it's all these things that I'm starting to appreciate now that I'm an adult, that I appreciated how much effort my dad put into his job to provide for his family. And I remember the odd time you'd see him, he'd pull up outside and he'd be in the car for a good 10 or 15 minutes. It's like, why isn't he coming in? And he'd be still on a work call, and he was working to the last minute because when he was home, he wasn't taking work calls.
That's what I think impacted, and the way you tackled your campaign re-election, Neale, sounds very like your father's input there, because I remember, and I'm on your WhatsApp group of about 250 people, I'm on a few of them actually, but you wouldn't rest up. You were going to the final whistle. We all knew, but I know that it's a hairy moment. We all knew you were killing it, right? No, you would. No, to be fair, you were. But what I loved about it, and everyone else did, was that it's not over till it's over. You were going, you were pushing, you were doing everything and anything possible to make sure. And I know we're going to talk about as well what you provide for and need to do as a husband and also a father. That's of primary importance, right? But again, I was astounded at how you went about it, and just your approach was, and you don't talk down to anybody either. Everyone's on an even playing field again, which is why most doors that we knocked on, Neale, they were very, very positive about. Neale Richmond, I know you know a lot of them as well, but that goes a long way. We even did another, door drop a couple of weeks ago, just as a refresher, right? But that shows you that you're planning ahead. I would just like the listeners to know a good bit more about Neale Richmond as an individual, the passions behind you. You're a big sportsman, right? You love your soccer.
I've played every sport badly. I've given it a try. American football, boxing, soccer. Well, I never really played soccer much bar outside school.
I can't see you playing soccer.
No, I was terrible and still am. I'm never invited to five-a-sides.
Yeah.
I've noticed that.
Yeah.
But no, rugby, again, it kind of goes back to, I would have spent a lot of my youth when I was with my dad at the weekends, it was going down to the rugby club.
Yeah.
The rugby club was a central part.
Okay.
And lots of people have this example. It doesn't have to be a sports club, but there's one thing that their family are involved in. And generally it is a sports club. But going down, the year I think my dad is, the way it works in our rugby club, and everyone does it slightly different, you do 3 years of a presidential ladder. So the first year you're junior presidents. So you look after the junior teams. Now that's not underage, that's thirds, fourths, fifths. And this was back when Wesley would have fielded 7 or 8 men's teams, in the early 90s. And there wasn't that many floodlit games. There was still a floodlit cup, it was a novelty. But Saturday, Sunday, I remember going to 4 or 5 rugby matches. You get the first half on the Saturday of the thirds, and then you go up to the top pitch to watch the third Bs if we were in what was Kilgobbin that you and I both have etched into our brain. So I would have grown up, and I wasn't the best player, far from it, still not, but I loved being part of that, being part of a club. Like you talk about, we go for coffee most mornings or regularly. There's a couple of places where I feel totally comfortable in life. The rugby club is definitely one, where we go for coffee, and the Gathering Grounds is another. I just know that if anyone's going to ask me about politics or work here, it's not going to be a hardship. They might be asking for something, and that's fine. You're always on, but you always know you can kind of relax. But definitely no rugby. And then, I'm very lucky in my 20s. I was a great person at blagging my way onto tours. So
what kind of tours?
You name it, invitational sides, made up sides.
Yeah.
Myself and a group of friends of mine made up a team to go play in a tournament.
Brilliant.
It was a little bit looser with insurance and things like that. I've played rugby in Japan, I've played rugby in America, I played a season for a club in Canada, I played rugby inGhana, which is a bizarre.
Did you play first rugby, or did you have aspirations to play at the top level?
Yeah, but just because you have aspirations doesn't mean you're going to. I played a lot of seconds, a lot of J1s in Wesley.
Good standard though.
Yeah, decent standard. But again, I was a prop. There's never many props. So I played 2 AL matches. That's the height of it. And that was generally both occasions I was on the bench because there was a bit of an injury crisis. Oh, I brag about it. I brag about it as widely as I can. All these people with their 100 AIL caps or their Schools Cup medals, and I was like, well, I got 2 off the bench because we had an injury crisis and the coach kind of liked me. But I would have very much, when I was playing, it would have been a case of, will you play for the seconds on the Sunday, but we need you to play for the thirds on Saturday. So I doubled up. Through my 20s, I doubled up every Saturday, Sunday. And then into my 30s, just said, you know what, I'll ease off this. But then you get the texts and you get flattered about it, and you go like, maybe I will.
I know, yeah. And is that why, Neale, if you're looking at a team sport or a team aspect, is that why you still push the boat out playing rugby to this day? That you want to be part of something that's outside, that you've a real passion for, that you like, because the guys you're playing with they're different. Like, you don't necessarily know them, do you?
No, I played with most of their dads. No, that's not a joke. Like, you know, if someone's 23, that means they're 18 years younger than me. Yeah, I did play with their dad. I played with lots of their dads. But there's 2 kind of reasons why I still refuse to say I don't play anymore. The first is, I physically can. I've never had that big bad injury. I've never done my knee. I've lots of bumps and niggles, but maybe because I wasn't particularly good, I never had that really bad injury. And I know lots of people who had to stop playing when they were 28, 29. I was like, well, if I can, why wouldn't I? And then the second thing was actually during COVID. So I'd kind of more or less, I'd eased off before COVID, busy job, started a family. The notion, like, I'd stopped going training years before. I'm not a great trainer. And I always had an excuse. But I was kind of during COVID, I was like, if I could still do this, and like, we were locked in our houses, the notion of playing sport, let alone watching sport, was totally alien. And I kind of made it myself, like, you know, really, when we get through this, there's the million things I want to do, one of which was thinking of, those Saturdays when it's a November International or a Six Nations. It's just like the simple things, the things that we're going to do this weekend that you took for granted. I was like, if I can play a match again, that'd be great. And so I went back, and we had a good season, actually. We won a couple of cups. And next thing I find myself at 39, hey, would you do skipper? And I was like, I don't need to be doing this. But like, the rule is I'm not going to train.
Yeah.
But what I loved was you'd go into the changing room, and it's most of these guys are in their early 20s. And they're just at a totally different stage of life. No responsibilities.
Yeah.
Like, you come for pints after the match.
Little or nothing in common. Like, what are we going to talk about over a pint, lads?
Which is great, because they don't care that I'm a politician. They think it's funny, but they don't understand it.
Yeah.
Or if they do understand it, they've really good questions.
Okay, that's another form of escapism then, right?
Oh, massive. And there's one or two other lads in the team who are similar age to me.
Okay.
And both of them work really tough jobs, one in construction, one in aircraft leasing. And they do a lot of travel. And they're like, for 2 or 3 hours, it's just like switching out of life. And a lot of it is just sitting around, listening to the absolute nonsense that lads in their 20s talk about. And they can be. And again, none of us are really going for the post-match pints, just kind of like, well, sorry, I have to get home, I have to make the tea.
I just wonder, Neale, do you fear getting injured, particularly in your role, like, which can easily happen? Someone just lands you the wrong way, and it's like, and there, we're done. That's it.
So I've definitely, there's been times where, I remember once going into the studio to go on the Tonight Show on Virgin Media, and I had a massive black eye, and the makeup artist
did a great job.
Yeah, no, she was there like, I'm not used to concealing black eyes. I'm used to giving people prosthetic black eyes.
Yeah.
I was there like, well, I can't really go on telly, because when you're in your late 30s, if you've got a black eye, everyone's quite suspicious. Why have you got a black eye? They don't believe that you still play third B's rugby of a Saturday away to Clontarf on the back pitch in Castle Avenue. And then I kind of started thinking, right, there's an election coming, and I can't campaign if I'm on crutches. Just can't.
Not with the steps.
You're on, 30, 40,000 steps a day. You're on your feet. And I said, you also need to be fit for an election, relatively speaking. So I was right.
Actually, Neale, will you give the listeners just a view of how many steps were covered in how many weeks did you do over that election? This is
a very short election campaign, so 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And no day was there less than 25,000 steps. The last day, I think I didn't get quite to 50,000 steps in the last day, which annoyed me. But
yeah, I like that completion of just a certain amount.
Just the even number.
The zeros, yeah.
But it's different if I was running in an election outside of Dublin in a rural area. You're in a car for most of the day because you're driving from rural home to rural home. We live in a part of Dublin where it's just largely housing estates.
Yeah.
So you can do 2 hours straight and knock on a continuous row of houses or loop of houses. Different type of elections, like a European election or a presidential election, or if I was the Taoiseach or a minister, I probably wouldn't be getting as many steps up because you're not on your feet as much.
Yeah. You mentioned the simple things earlier on, and obviously kids being a huge part of that. What do you do, Neale, to switch off, or the work element aside? I see you at 5:30, 6 every morning doing your loop around as I'm heading up for a cold plunge. You've a full day ahead, as we said at the very outset. How does Neale Richmond switch off and just down tools?
Yeah, there's loads of different ways. Like, I'd like to have all the sort of household stuff done.
You sound very hands-on at home.
Try to be, but my wife would tell you I'm not. Like, so this is what as my career has progressed and I'm more away from my home, and in my next job I'm going to be away even more. There's certain things I like to do. And I remember actually reading it, totally different situation. George Hook, the former presenter, when his marriage was on the rocks and he broke down crying, and it's in his book, so I'm not betraying any secrets, and he made the commitment to his wife that I'll always empty the dishwasher. One real simple thing. So I like to get up ahead of the rest of the family. My late father always got up before us, and he did the same. He always had the dishwasher emptied. I know that's a real basic thing.
Yeah.
So the notion of going to the gym at the night or going for a run, it's not a runner, like, because my kids are still awake and I want to spend time with them. I want to be around my family when I'm home.
Yeah.
I see it as selfish. So I get up a bit earlier just to get the head right for the day, bit of exercise in, and then you've done it. but come home, empty the dishwasher,
and be present.
make my wife's lunch, make my kids' lunch. They're packed up, ready to go. Tidy up the kitchen or whatever else. That might be my sole contribution to the home for the whole day. And in the case of today, I did that this morning. Of course, what are we were bed at 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. I don't know if I'll be home before my kids go to bed tonight.
Okay.
It's 50-50. I hope to be, but there is always something that could come up. So at least I know I've done something. I've seen them. I've contributed.
Yeah.
So that's part of a switching off. Other than that, like genuinely, I get quite into my son's coaching now. Like I'm not a competitive dad. The complete opposite, actually. I'm not that overbearing. I want you to play for Ireland. I just love being around him and his buddies, and like 12 of the kids in his team are in his class. It's just lovely to hear a bunch of 7-year-olds talking like me and those 25-year-olds in the change room. And we played real great. And I just love being around that. Coach with a couple other dads, cup of coffee after that. I do like my coffee.
You mentioned you're going to be away a fair bit with the new role, and therefore time with the kids will be less. How does that sit with you?
Yeah, well, one thing that I have that my late father didn't have is I have FaceTime. And FaceTimes are vital, because in my previous role I would have been away quite a bit. And the nature of politics, and I don't do overnights in Ireland. You'd be invited to a dinner, you'd be invited
just a red card. No, that's it. Yeah.
And they go like, oh, and you can stay the night.
In
like
a really plush, whatever, doesn't matter.
I wouldn't say really plush. Department of Finance keep things tight.
Average.
Yeah, like
for an average rugby player.
Yeah. You know when people go like, oh, I love a night away in a hotel.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really like staying in a hotel. I like my own bed. I like my own home. Anyone who's travelled for work knows that a business hotel at 7 o'clock at night is pretty depressing.
It is.
You're away from home. You've had your tea.
Sounds fancy, but it's absolute.
Not. You're stuck watching CNN or hotel TV, and you go like, right, do I go down to the bar and have 6 beers? I've been to the gym. I've had my dinner. I've ticked all my boxes. I don't go to bed at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
What do I do to occupy the next 2 hours? And it's really dangerous, and that's why a lot of people who travel for work struggle with it. I don't travel exhaustively for work, but I have gone through periods where I do a lot of travel. So if we've a breakfast meeting at 7:30 in Cork, I'm getting up at 4 o'clock and going down, rather than going down the night before, because then you're missing a bedtime and a breakfast, rather than just missing a breakfast with the kids.
And we know what the formative years are like. The first 8 to 10 years, though, it's profound for a kid, isn't it? And also for the parent too. People kind of go, well, I'm doing it for the kids from away all the time, but all they need is you and the time, and they're craving it.
And it's one thing I think it's quite interesting. I don't remember what life was like when I was 4.
I don't either. Even 7, I struggle with.
I think I have a snapshot of Italia 90. Like just it's you know what I mean. Like I was 7 in Italia 90, and I remember how. Yeah, I do remember loads of different things of like, but I don't have an extensive memory of it. But now I'm seeing it through my kids' eyes. I'm seeing my kids and they're completely tuned in, and they're asking questions, and you're going like, they're only going to remember snapshots of this. And you want them to make sure they remember the happy bits, or that you don't want their memory that you weren't there, or you were, or if you were there, you were always on your phone, which is and I'm not good at this. It's the putting the phone away.
But you're constantly on with the comms all the time, or like, are you on that, Neale? You're fairly hard nosed, clearly in your role, but with comments and firefighting and negativity, that's another area I was going to ask you about. How do you address, or just turn that page and not look at it? Just go, I don't need to know about that. Are you trained genuinely? And I mean that in a good way. Are you trained to just go, look, everyone's going to have a comment. I spoke to Stephen yesterday about just negativity in general and removing people. The WhatsApp refresh, where you just you don't need those school friends, now they don't fit into your current role, phase and stage of life. But he said, like, just negativity as a whole was coming at him from different sides at a tricky point, and people who he least expected came out of the woodwork to help him. Yeah. But it affected his headspace if he allowed it to. And then he just went, you know what, I need to turn the switch and stop. But for you, it's amplified to a massive level.
Yeah, and there is a happy medium, because I've had colleagues who just don't look at social media, who don't engage. They have a press officer who does it for them, but then you're totally at a remove. So you do need to be hands-on, because it needs to be authentic. If you are communicating in any form, and I'm in the business of communication.
So you don't get anyone else to do any of your social media, or do you?
It's a mix, to be honest. I approach each social media channel differently. Not everyone does this, but again,
because there is one avenue you can go in that sprouts out to all of the channels.
Totally.
If you as a ease of use.
Yeah, like the whole copy and paste, the same comment, the same picture.
It doesn't fit the channels.
It doesn't fit the narrative. So, like I am, and this is a term a lot of people use. I am a career politician. I'm a professional politician. I haven't come from teaching or the law to work in this.
You've always wanted to do this.
Well, since college, yeah. This is, and I didn't necessarily think I wanted to be a politician. I thought I wanted to work in politics as an advisor, press officer. So I literally, and kind of back to Rich point. So my father died in middle of October. I handed in my thesis 2 weeks later and got on a plane and went to Belgium. So that was to start an internship in the European Parliament. So that was literally first real job. You know, I had lots of jobs. The jobs themselves were real, but they were never my career. And so I don't want to mention what they were, because I don't want to denigrate people who are doing those. I was just the student who was working a few levels below them as a part-timer. So that was what I've always worked in professionally. Politics are related to politics. So the way we've approached social media has changed. When I started in politics, like we still had Bebo pages.
Yeah.
You know, Facebook came pretty quick.
Yep.
There was X wasn't invented, or Twitter. LinkedIn wasn't a thing. Instagram wasn't a thing. There wasn't podcasts. You know what I mean? So everything has changed, and I've been elected since 2009. So it's not like I went into. So I within the party we are trained, and we do media training, social media training, and people use it as criticism. Oh, you're really trained for media. And it's like, well, actually, you need to know that when you're going on that. You need to speak a little bit slower, because
you tell me that.
You're trying to get information across. You need to know how to listen to a question, and particularly depending on what show, or that if you're on the radio or television, shouting across someone just makes for bad coverage.
So that's the listening to respond. How often does that happen? So often, Neale. Doesn't it? Like you're not listening with intent to go, I need to answer this question, and actually think about the answer, and not just rush in with a response that I had primed and ready to go. It's like, what is this individual asking me now, and how do I respond to it effectively, right? Does that happen an awful lot? And you actually told me, I was looking for a bit of a guide about, okay, so you've got TV Neale, you've got to look like, you know, you're on all the time, and that your interest, which is fair, right? Podcasts, you've got to talk a little bit slower, and then radio is a little bit different as well, and you've done all of the above a million times over. But I think you, from a politician's viewpoint, you listen with serious intent and actually answer the questions properly.
Yeah, and that's the key to it. You got to remember two things. Who am I actually talking to here? And podcast is different, because I'm having a conversation with you, but I could probably tell you that the vast majority people who will listen to this podcast will probably be men our age who are out for a walk or who are in the car. And that's when they listen to podcasts, and that's their sort of escapism. Yeah. If I'm on the radio, it's probably someone in the car or in their kitchen, and I have the radio on in the background. Someone doesn't listen intently, even if you're watching a TV political debate show. You might be on your phone, you might be reading a book, you might have the paper. You're not completely intent listening to every word. So you need to know, right, they have heard the question. I know what I want to answer or what I want to get into my answer. But there's no point me just saying that if that's not the question.
Correct.
And with a lot of shows, your question will start with the presenter or your opponent giving you their own opinion or their own take, and then they'll pivot to the actual question. So you'd love to comment on.
But you have a narrative as well to get across, right?
So you got to combine the two. I'm going to answer the question, but I need to get my point across. And presenters love to go one word answer only, or yes or no only, and you go like, that doesn't fit. No. And I think you're doing a disservice to the listener if you think I can sum up a question that you've given me your opinions on with a yes or no. Not very, very few things in life are binary. Very few things are a yes or no answer. And particularly in politics, if you've voted one way or done something or said something, you need to provide the context. So you have to try and get that across as well. But dealing with social media, you're not being asked questions, so you can get yourself across in the rawest form. So you're both asking the question and answering it. And each channel each platform is so different. Again, different audience. The person on LinkedIn, professional, they probably aren't on any other social media. They want to know briefly what's going on and how it affects them. Instagram's a bit lighter. They want a nice picture. X.
I have to get used to Instagram for this very reason.
Yeah, and it's good, and it's again different audiences, different, and a lot of this is generalizations.
Yeah.
And what I see as my audience there probably wouldn't be necessarily what someone else does, but that's probably because how I use them all. Like each platform, I have really, really talented people who work alongside me, smarter than I am, and ultimately they'll say, well, maybe we should do this or we should make a video or all that, and I have to be able to go like, this is your expertise. I'm not a videographer. I don't know how to cut this right. I'm not a photographer. But equally, it has to be authentic. It has to sound like I'm saying it. So particularly words, I've written a lot of speeches. I've written a lot of press releases in my life. Written a lot of papers, various articles in newspapers. So even social media posts, I take that seriously. There's no sort of glib, throwaway comment with a blurry picture. Because I think the people who are seeing it might be their sole interaction with a politician.
But you're right, you mentioned
day.
it needs to be a personal response, otherwise it looks too kind of staged. How much do you love your job?
100%. Best job in the world, genuinely. And I know that's a real throwaway question, and politicians love giving out about their jobs to each other. But I genuinely, and I try and push back on people this, what other job can you do amazing different things? Like people go like, oh, going on TV, traveling for work. I don't see traveling for work as the big plus, by the way. Meeting interesting people. I will go into my emails today, and you'll talk about people will send you nasty emails or nasty social media comments, or they'll be looking something for you. But I can absolutely bank that I'll have at least one email, one message, or one phone call today from someone thanking me.
I was going to say, Neil, that's amazing. So you touched on this pod probably, and what we're trying to do here is help people, right? Which goes back to your job is helping people. Would I be right?
Yeah.
And how you've just basically beat me to it. How good does that feel when you're actually helping somebody?
It's hard to describe. Again, I'll go back to my dad was a sales rep, and I could imagine. I don't know because I was too young to know. But you look at movies, what everyone that reaction when someone lands the big deal or the big sale or the footballer scoring a goal. It feels a bit like that. Like there's a feeling of accomplishment, of course, but it's a bit more than that because you've impacted someone's life positively. You've literally you've got a street light fixed that because it was broken, an 82-year-old woman, and these are real examples, would not leave her home after 4 o'clock because she was scared she would fall.
Right.
You have managed, and I think, and this is something that's more and more pressing, and because I have kids now, and the empathy levels go up and down the more you do this. I feel like the hardest one is that there's lots of really hard ones. The ones that get to you really tough and kind of stop in your tracks when you're dealing with the parents of kids who have additional needs, who have a disability, and this. It might not necessarily like the severely disabled, physically, mentally, of course, but you're just looking at a parent and they're in sheer desperation that they're just trying to do the very basic, normal things for their kids. Get them an appointment, get them into an educational system that fits. A very basic entitlement and right that every child, you're not looking for special treatment for your child, far from it. But you become so frustrated. You're reaching so many dead ends. You can't navigate the system. And this isn't because the system's against you. It is tricky. You just can't find necessarily the answer. But you're so desperate that you've sent an email or made a phone call to a TD. I'm not an occupational therapist. I'm not a psychologist. But and it's probably because they're generally facing parents who are about my own age. And this is, again, it's all relevant, and you're just like, I'm speaking to a woman who's my age who cares so much for their child. They're being reduced to contact me, and they can't get 2 minutes into the call without crying. And you're just kind of like, it takes you back and it punches you in the stomach, and you go like, someone called me ugly on TV last night. It really doesn't matter. It kind of grinds you a good bit. And this is why I think politicians have a responsibility to be engaged. And the Irish system is, you've got a sample of what the Irish elections are like. They're on the ground, they're in person. They're not, I have friends who are in America, and I was like, oh, big news with the presidential election. And they go, it doesn't affect me. It's like watching a soap opera. You know, I'm not involved in politics at that level. Now, who's elected to my local school board or something like that, that affects me. They can remove themselves. But in Ireland, our politicians, of all parties and none, have to get involved, have to be authentic in some way involved in their community or have some level of interaction. So when I'm dealing with people and they are prepared to bare their utter soul to you, and you're going like, and they're going like, oh, we're getting 2 hours sleep a night, and this isn't to make anything sound say some virtuous career. Like, this is just ultimately you're just answering a phone call, you're just answering an email, or you're just having a cup of coffee.
Is it the primary driver, Neale, of why you do what you do?
Yeah, the people. Has to be.
The purpose of this podcast is based around what, you know, you really want to do for a living, and I think you're actually living and breathing that, aren't you?
Yeah, no, as I said, I love my job. It gives me the ability to help people, to talk in a way that I like talking, and very few roles are you guaranteed job satisfaction. Of course, you get loads of rough moments, you get tough days, and equally I like the people I work with, including those on the other side of the aisle. I like getting to know people who have different politics to me, but what makes them tick is probably the same that makes me tick, just at the core of it, just in a different manner. So it's a great, and it's too easy for politicians to, behind closed doors, give out about the stick and the stress and the travel and all that, but then go out there, and you have to be able to get across why you love doing the role, because too many people who aren't involved, or too many people who it serves their self-interest to have a pop, they'll judge and they'll provide the narrative of why people do this, and you'll hear references to perks and mercs and all this sort of stuff. No, it's a wonderful, and I think I said it earlier, I don't see it necessarily as a profession, but as a vocation. And that's very, that can be very self-indulgent in terms of using that term. But you don't, you have to treat it as such. You have to be prepared. And the amount of people who, when they leave electoral politics, still stay involved. They're still out canvassing. They're still providing advice to new candidates, mentoring. They're providing commentary. Because, just because you stop playing sport doesn't mean you leave the club. You'll still coach. You'll still do the bag. You'll still be the secretary. And that's why I kind of see it in that guise. Yeah,
and I guess the role you have primarily is around helping people, right? And people will debate about what politicians do. Is it ego? Is it power tripping? Is it all about them? And that's kind of high and mighty. Look at me. But I've seen the real Neale. I've seen the graft, and I know that you do what you do primarily to help people first and foremost.
Yeah, and the vehicle you use to help people is yourself, your personality. It's your name on the ballot paper, whether you're in a party or not, and due to our electoral system. So you do have to put yourself out there. You do have to physically show up on media. You do have to physically call to people's doors. You have to make sure people know also how to get in touch with you. That's how you help people. By going around to people's doors, by putting leaflets in. I have no interest in seeing 500 posters with my face on around the area, but they do work. That's how you get votes.
They do.
And you need to get votes to help people to the highest ability. The same way we're at the moment of cabinet reshuffles and appointments, and people are going like, oh, this is all about personal ambition. But the further you get involved in politics, the more you can do for the bigger amount of people. I know for a long time, for about a year when I was in the Senate, I got really frustrated. I was there like, I just felt like I was doing so much more as a councillor, real practical, put in a question, put in a motion, was able to get the footpath fixed, the street light repaired, the whatever it was. But then I realised that actually, no, I have to work harder now as a senator. Because when you can change legislation or when you can get a particular opinion across on media, you are helping people. But then you have to tell them how you're helping people and how this is in their interests, and it's in their interest to stay supporting you or your party or your government. And some people will make the judgment, actually, it's not in my interest. And that's fine. That is A-OK. That's exactly what you want. And as a TD, certainly. But I know as a Minister of State, you know, I'm helping more people now than when I was a councillor. I have more resources to help people. I have more ability. My drive to help people is greater than ever because it takes a little bit more. And it shouldn't be viewed as some sort of holier thou, you know, as if you're taking a vow of, you know, I'm going off to the missions to help people. You're helping your community, and anyone who seeks elected office is generally of their community. Maybe they're born there, maybe they're raised there, not exclusively, but to not just get elected, but to do the job right, you need to be of your community. You need to have been involved in the campaigns locally, the residents groups, the sports clubs, the schools. You can't fake that. So many different politicians. Oh, I'm going to run for election. You know what? I'll join the Tidy Towns group. And you're going out, and there's people who've been there for 20, 30 years. They'll see right through it. If you're just doing it to get elected as opposed to actually help, people see that. I mean, you see it in various sports clubs. I'd be very standoffish, like, I'm not going to pretend to be your diehard volunteer because I'll do it in one club, and I know you can't just, you know, fake it, and you'd often get the same way, like Dublin GA. I enjoy going to an occasional Dublin GA match, but I'm not going to try and pretend that I'm a Super Dubs fan because there are thousands of people who are season ticket holders who don't miss a senior football match or a senior camogie match, who've been involved in the organisation for their entire lives. Now, they will recognise that you have an interest or an involvement and you have their interests at heart, but I think that goes to everything, that you need to be part of something to want to run for office. And the trick is, the further you move along the ladder in elected office is making sure that people know that what motivated you, or motivated me certainly in 2009, is no different now. It's actually even greater. I won't do something unless I can do it 100%. And if I don't want to do something, or if it doesn't tick my box, I just won't do it. I won't put my hand up. And not necessarily because it's a horrible job, or I just go like, it sounds daft, like we need someone to help with a bit of DIY work. I'm really bad at that. So I'm not going to volunteer and give up 4 hours of my time not really helping. But there is lots of things all of us can do to make a situation better. I'm a big believer in, if you like doing it, you'll be really good at it.
But you're helping people, Neale, if you put the negative comments aside, the emails that you might get from people going, thanks a million, the social media posts that are of positive, sway, that they're going, you really did something that has helped us. That's what drives you. You mentioned motivation. That's what motivates you.
Yeah, and like 50% of people don't thank you. They just want it done, and they're right to. Because a lot of the time for the politician, you're just making sure the system works. You're helping them navigate the system. You're helping breaking the barriers. Like, the thanks in itself isn't what motivates me. It's getting the job done.
Yeah.
It's getting the win, the sale, whatever you want to call it in your own profession. It's knowing, look, I need to go on to do an interview here, and I need to get a really clear point across. And if I can do that, and it's clear and it's articulate, it'll hopefully make things a bit better down the line. If I can get something sorted, I don't care if they don't say thanks. As long as I know the job is done and I've done my part and I've given it my all. And look, you know very quickly in politics if people acknowledge your work. We reapply for our job every 5 years.
Yeah.
And if the day comes, and the day will comes, that I lose out in an election, so be it.
Does much of the job affect you? Does it have do you have hard days in the job now?
Yeah, absolutely. And the main thing is you have to have ability to step back and kind of check yourself a little bit. Remember a couple of years ago, I thought I was going to be appointed to something and I wasn't. And I threw a strop internally. No one saw it. Like no other way to describe it. I threw a strop and I acted like an entitled little whatever you want to call it. And I absolutely wrecks my head that I reacted.
But I bet you'll never do it again.
Yeah, exactly. And there's times, it's like when you're on a door and someone roars in your face or whatever, you just have to take the moment and the amount of time. And it goes back
Which
to
you've done on the doors. You've had people literally stand in front of you and go, I don't like you.
Yeah, I've had them say much worse. I've had them shout. I've had them throw stuff. It's fine. I had one guy during the campaign, and this is a thing that's new enough.
But is that trained, Neale, or is experience? How do you just
It's experience. You
brush
can't-
it off?
It is experience. Like you can't go into, and I would do this a lot with our new candidates and go like, this is how you react to this situation on media or on the doors. And it's very easy. I'll just walk away. And it's very hard, particularly, and I'm really cognizant when I have people out canvassing or volunteering who maybe haven't done it before. Call me old-fashioned, I'm overly cognizant with younger people and women, just that sort of thing. But like the main thing, and I think I went back to a point, I remember my dad when I was a kid, he'd pull up outside the house, as I said before, and he'd take 10, 15 minutes to finish the call, compartmentalise his day. He could have had a very long day. As I said, it wasn't just work for him, he was involved in everything. So was my mum. But when he came in, he was just dad. And yeah, he may have had to do a little bit of work later. And I don't do it well enough. This is something I really struggle with. It's, turn it off, as I think I said elements of this earlier, it's being able to, it is not my kids or my wife's fault that someone was mean to me at work. It is not anyone's fault that someone rings me up and the last person who rang me up was pretty lousy to me. That doesn't mean that I can take it out on the next person who really needs my help. And you find myself biting my tongue a lot when someone says something to you and they mean well, it's a throwaway comment and you're like, really? Seriously? And that, again, it's just ego. And I work really hard at checking that, but I know I fail at checking that. And that's something that I want to continuously work on to get better at.
You've mentioned your parents a fair bit throughout this chat. How much would you love for them to see you now, and maybe not as a politician, Neale, but as the family man, the kids?
Being a functioning adult. The phrase adulting is a new one. I wasn't around when they were around. But no, I know my parents loved me and loved my siblings and instilled great things in all four of us. When I say great things, just basic, how to be a decent person, for lots of different reasons. So absolutely, I would love nothing more. I'd trade everything to sit down with either or both of them for half an hour just to say loads of little things. But you try not to dwell on that, because I think if you overly dwell on it, you lose sight of the great things you did get from them in some people's case, really brief times. And some people would have had difficult relationships and mightn't have ended well. And you don't want to cloud out a tricky ending or a crossword. Don't allow that crowd out the majority of the good things. And the good things can be really basic. Being up before you and having the cereal on the table. It's only when you get into that position you go like, it's nothing, but it just makes things move along swifter. The kind word, all those sort of things. So yeah, no, I wouldn't care if they saw me as a politician or as a whatever. I'd just like to see me as a person, and I have no doubt they wouldn't say anything. It wasn't their way. And I'm always a bit skeptical with people who overly constantly are telling people that they love them or they're proud of them or all that. And maybe I'm just very conservative.
I think they've had a deep impact on you, and your humbleness shines through, and I think that speaks volumes of them as individuals. And I was going to ask you about shout outs to, but I know, I'm pretty sure Babs and your kids are front and centre there. We don't need to list off others. We've got Joe in the room here as well. Joe's a legend, and he was doing door drops and canvassing and all sorts as well. And I got to know him quite well over the only a couple of days that I did. But so your next role is pretty exciting. We obviously can't talk about it, or you can't disclose what that is, but it sounds like you're going to be travelling a lot and doing a lot of good. You're obviously excited about that too.
Yeah, really excited. We're still I have a fair idea what I'm doing, but it could always be taken away from me. So even if it doesn't work out, I'm still going to be a TD for the next 5 years. Still would like to say that I'll be relatively the same person in 5 years. I hope I am. I hope that's a good thing. And when you
might be creaking a bit more, you might be moving a little bit slower. The next kind of campaign might be, slightly different.
That's daft. I was actually said it to someone. They go like, "What's the difference between this campaign and 5 years ago?" I was like, "Well, I'm 5 years older." Like it's a little bit more work. Like when I was first round for election, I was 25. It wasn't exactly in great nick, but I was still just a lot younger. And no bother.
The niggles just don't go away like they used to, sure they not.
They build up.
Do. And if you were to leave any listeners with a nugget, Neale, of wisdom in terms of, and this is the premise of what this podcast is all about, as well as the purpose, but some little gem that you've experienced in life that allows you either be a better individual, a family man, a husband, a father. Is there anything that you would say to people who are tuning in?
I think it's a lot of people are always looking for the big moment, the big defining moment to define them that they can tell people about. But it's taking joy in the real ordinary things.
Simple stuff.
Because when they're taken away from you, that's what you miss most.
Lovely. Yeah. I experienced that with any sort of health scare. You would pay any amount of money to not have it and to forego everything else and get that back when it's not there. And it's all like, have this picture on my phone that just says simplify your life. It just simplify everything. So before we wrap up, any questions to flip onto me?
No, I've no questions. I suppose I really enjoy going on podcasts. I think this type of conversation has disappeared from public discourse too much. Not just in terms of what we watch or listen or what we consume, but the ability to stop and have a conversation with people. When you talk about the simple things, never take it for granted. We're all rushing. We're all busy.
We are.
And to be able to take 10 minutes, or in our case, a lot longer, to talk sometimes awful nonsense. But when that nonsense flips into something a bit deeper, expose an element of vulnerability maybe, and you can see a genuineness in a person, I think that's, I would hope, is what you're trying to achieve.
Well, I think it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, because you've been so, and I did say this at the outset, I said, look, Neale, if we can park the politics for this particular chat, which you just touched on there, and the very reason to do this is to find out about just the little things, the simple stuff, the man behind what you see and what we all see, whether it's on the press or on the radio, listening on the radio or on the telly, that doesn't matter really. And you've seconded that by saying, you know, what your parents would really, you know, or what you'd really like your parents to see is the family man, not the politician. And that speaks volumes to me and everybody listening in, because it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. You love your job. Everyone knows that. That's your purpose. Isn't that the beauty of all of these sort of chats? It feels like we're up in the gathering grounds, having a coffee. There's no, you know, awkwardness or like, oh no, it's the big stage here. This is you and me shooting the breeze, and hopefully for people tuning in that they just get something from this, that they just understand that it is about the small things. I'm glad you touched on that. It wasn't me. You drove that. You know, and that's of paramount importance for anyone tuning in. So again, thanks. We'll do it again. Appreciate your time. Busy man. Best of luck with the new role. It's going to be awesome.
Cheers.
We all know that. Thanks very much. I'm extremely lucky to get a sponsor straight away. So special thanks to Maplewood Residential. They've been at the forefront of the Dublin property market for almost 50 years now, delivering high quality, energy efficient, sustainable and much needed new homes across the Dublin area. Check out suttonfield.ie in Dublin 18 and ballycullingate.ie in Dublin 24. This podcast is produced at Sandyford Business District at Hub 17.